Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. I have a brand new guest on. I'm very happy to have on Amanda Slyter. Now, she is a founder, mediator, and coach at Slyter Mediation, LLC, the Remote Mediator. Her primary focus is on family mediation and co-parenting, working with parents to prevent future high conflict and parental alienation using her unique background and experience to help parents understand the costs and risks and find alternative resolutions created by them and not a judge. Now, she's also a parental alienation advocate. She raises awareness about the effects of parental alienation, not only from clients she's worked with over the last 2 decades, but also as an alienated parent from firsthand experience. Also, she's a trial paralegal consultant and litigation strategist with complex civil litigation and white collar criminal defense, jury trials and preparation, paralegal support for law firms. I welcome you, Amanda. And how did you ever get involved with all of this and mediation?
Hi. Well, it's kind of something that I've kind of fell into. Being in the legal field, I've been in the legal field for over a decade, about 12 years now. And since I was little, it was, I'm always trying to fix problems and try to, see how we can just somehow all get along, right? And
Right.
so you see siblings fighting, and then it's like, but why are we fighting? Or then you see, other people growing up, or you see parents, and then you get in these certain situations in life, and then it's like, why are we acting this way? And so all these years, I've spent so much time just trying to work with people one-on-one, like I did life coaching and stuff. But working in the legal field, I saw more of a need for me to kind of focus more on the mediation side because of the effects that litigation alone can cause on somebody. And it's not just, it's not just family law. It's all areas of all case types that involve litigation, because you've got your expenses, you've got the stress, you've got the whole process is time lengthy, and people don't realize that it takes so much time. There's just so much involved with it that I saw so many people just devastated because of what they've had to go through, and then a lot of it with family law. And so I decided, okay, even though I've pretty much done mediation before being certified, I was like, let's make this official. Let's actually open a practice and start, making it official as a mediator. And this is going to be a way to, for me to help people. But it's making a huge difference, because it's not just helping who I'm helping. Those people are going to take that experience and that learning lesson and apply it hopefully in their life somewhere. So for me, it was nothing new. It was something that I build people up, I empower them, and help them be the best that they can be. And this is a way that I'm able to do that.
And I think that's the best way, is to help with this mediation so they don't end up in front of a judge who's going to tell them when they can see the kids and how things and holidays are going to be. I don't think
Right.
parents realize that when they walk into a courtroom.
No, they don't. And family law is very different than a personal injury case, when you're going to trial, or, I work high profile cases. I work complex cases in legal. And so we're looking at intellectual property. You've got patents and trademarks, things like that. I've done work with like Gibson guitars with their patent trademark, their trademark cases and stuff. And it's just, it's different. And then I work at like the white collar criminal, and people are being accused of things that they didn't even do sometimes. And so when you look at that, and then you look at family law, when people see family law, they scream, Jerry Springer drama. But, it's different when it comes to family law, because, you're talking about your children. You've got, you're allowing, or not allowing, but you're forced to have a judge determine what is going to happen. And that's hard as a parent, especially a mother.
And these judges aren't necessarily, well, this could be another podcast, but I've noticed this trend where they are giving the child to the abusive parent.
And it happens a lot. Unfortunately, it happens a lot. And I think that, I mean, I see the biggest problem with that is that the courts are they have to put the children in the best interest. You know, it's what's in the best interest of the child. But at the same time, there are a lot of issues within that whole process that it has to happen that way. And I think there are a lot of issues. I mean, I think a lot of it could be addressed and fixed, but it takes a lot to do that, a lot to make a change.
Now, do you tell your clients a little bit about your story and how to avoid this? Do you coach them on these how not to alienate the child from the other parent?
I do. Without going into a lot of detail, I do let clients know, hey, I understand your situation because I've been in this, either it's this exact situation or something similar to it. But honestly, I've been in all of these situations because mine's more complex. But so it helps. It helps tremendously. I would say probably 101% when a client is like, oh, so you understand what I'm going through. And, so in the middle of a conversation, they're like, you know what I'm talking about? You've experienced that, right? And I'm going, absolutely, and for both sides, and it helps for both sides because there are always some little pieces or something that will actually relate to me, whether it's on, whenever because it's hard when you're trying to mediate family law. It's difficult because one side is always, or both sides point the finger, but there's always one that's a stronger pointer, but then there's always something small within a conversation with that particular side that's like, hey, I understand this, and then they're like, okay, I thought you were on her side. It's like, well, no, because I'm not on either side.
Right. That's why you're the mediator.
Yeah, I'm the neutral, but it does help having that experience so that I could use it for both sides. But then the coaching is I think the best way whenever you have a parent that doesn't want to participate, because mediation takes two. So when that other parent doesn't want to participate, then I recommend coaching so that it's one-on-one with me. And even having their child with them, then it's like, hey, let's work on some things that, you can work on yourself. You can't work on somebody else. You can work on yourself. So let's start there.
Have you ever had a parent say in mediation, they're the one with the problem? You know how they point the finger, they're the one with the problem. You know what I mean?
I think I've heard that in almost every situation. And then I'm like, okay, let's take that problem. Let's break it down. Let's talk about what's the problem here.
Yeah, it's people have to work together. Even if you hate each other, it's better to go in front of a mediator and hammer this stuff out than go into this vicious, toxic courtroom that does not respect you. I guarantee everyone will have more respect out of a mediator than you will a judge.
In the long run, yeah. But I think in the beginning, a lot of people are like, mediators are a waste of time. And, you spend money on it. They're expensive. And then I'm going, okay, if you take the cost of a mediator for one, even if it's one whole day, which I don't recommend because your attention span after 3 or 4 hours, it's like in the tension. So even if you take a whole entire day of a mediator cost, and then you compare that to the total cost of litigation and everything involved, I mean, it's just this tiny little bitty percent,
Right.
And people don't understand that until they look back and they're like, wow, I can't believe I spent so much.
Right. And you think, I mean, things can be done in a matter of like fixed in 1 to 2 days, really. I mean, if you have people that, flow smoothly with you when you're mediating,
right?
Things can be solved much quicker. And, there's problems with, kids, they're worried about, I think a big problem is a third party influence coming in. Uh, have you had, I'm sure you've had experience with that. They come in and say, now they're calling, you know, whoever, mom or dad, and how do you handle these things? Because you can't, you tell a parent, they can't call your boyfriend or girlfriend, mom or dad. What are
Right.
you going to do? Put cameras in the house? Because you can't make these people behave.
Right. I mean, when you're talking about high conflict, like high toxic divorces and post-divorce, you're not going to have people that typically follow the rules and follow, orders and whatnot. I would say at least half of the conflicts that I've dealt with over the years have been a third party influence. Most recently, it's been like step parents, there's a lot that goes on with step parents, and it's hard being a step parent. I'm a, step parent too, but at the same time, it's like the others, somebody's jealous. Somebody's trying to ruin a relationship. Somebody's lacking attention. Somebody's, there's so many different interferences. Or one in particular where it's like you've got a younger step parent and they're like, well, I don't want child support interfering with my financial life, with my new life, and it's like, okay, it's just the immature behaviors that are consistent with most of these high conflict cases. So if we're dealing with it, it's, it's really pulling the party aside to really focus on, okay, what is your problem with this person? Breaking down those issues and those personal feelings about why, what's going on, finding out the actual problem of what's going on. And so in blended families, it's really tough because there's always some insecurity from the outside spouse that came in or the outside sibling that came in as a step or half sibling. And so it's that insecurity that they have, and it could be jealousy. And so it's having to work with both sides. Like if you're a family, no matter if it's blended or step or whatever, you have to figure out something that you can at least agree on and at least make it civil enough to make a good life for the child so that they have good memories and not have a traumatic childhood where it's going to damage them in the long run.
Hey, I'm sure you've seen parents say, well, Johnny wants to spend 6 days with dad and then, come back to my house for 8 days and then go back to dad's for 10 days. We should let these kids come and go, but then parents are watching the dates and the times and how many days. And that's where we get into this messy child support issue, which could be another podcast.
Right.
I'm sure you've had parents say that, and I'm sure you encourage them to work it out somehow. The kid should be able to go back and forth or whatever they want to do.
Right. And, the courts try not to do, from what I've seen, it's just you want a stable environment. So it can be difficult to have a child where they're spending 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, or, or like you would say, this many days here, this many days there, but, so that it still evens out so that there's still some type of, equal arrangement, but but you also have to look at it at a different aspect, because if they're moving back and forth so much, then they still have that somewhat type of instability that they're going to be used to, and they're going to think that that's what life is. So I have to switch, as an adult, I'm gonna have to switch all the time, so I see that as the problem. But then at the same time, it's like you want both parents, you want everybody talks about split custody. Usually it's not 50-50 completely, but you try to get it to the closest that it is. And even with, finances, it's not completely dividing everything down the middle. So it's usually doesn't work that way. But as far as the time together, I see more common in my field with legal and mediation. I see more common where it's more of the standard, every other weekend kind of thing. And that seems to be okay if you're close by. But I highly suggest that other parent is involved, even in the times that the child's not with them. You're still being involved every week. And whether it's, picking up the child from school and spending a couple hours while the other parent, the custodial parent is still working, or you still can have time together without the child staying the night so many days here and the night so many days there. Events, for example, school events and sports, any activities, extracurricular activities, then you have both parents still participating as much as possible, so you still have that wholeness as a family, but not having to keep it all completely divided.
I agree. And parents, I'm sure, have come to you recognizing some signs and symptoms of parental alienation.
Right. And I think every couple that I've ever spoken with since I was little has had some issue. I've never had any couple that says, "Oh, we had this perfect life."
You're right.
And we're going to divorce.
And when, like, parental alienation, I think it's so insidious when it's like, as a parent, you don't see it coming until it's full
it
blown.
hits you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's very difficult to overcome when the other parent is financially controlling the situation of the child.
Right. I see a lot of, a lot of times it's like, you see a divorce where a mother doesn't make as much as the father, and then the father's fighting for custody because he says he can afford it more. And then he'll, he can afford not just living expenses, but he can afford to be the whole Disney dad. I'm going to buy everything you want. I could support the child better because I can provide this, this, and this, and this, that even though we never had it before, I can all of a sudden come up with it. That happens a lot, but and it's not just fathers. I mean, there are mothers who are making more than the fathers, but then, and they're like, I could have this better lifestyle, or we've been living this luxury lifestyle. And then, it's time for a divorce. And it's like, well, my child needs to continue living this luxury lifestyle. Otherwise, it's going to hurt them if they have to live a basic lifestyle like everybody else.
Yeah, we wouldn't wish divorce on anyone. It's the worst thing to go through. Nobody wants to go through it. It's horrible, but we've got to somehow work together. And I know, some people want 50-50 shared parenting, and some people say, it's not cookie cutter, which really, I mean, it's not cookie cutter. There could be problems, as with, say, abuse charges or what have you. So it just depends on the individuals and if you're working with a personality disorder or not.
Right. I've worked with so many personalities over the years that, it's hard because people are the way that they are. They were either born like that, or something in their life has, caused them to act a certain way. And so, and again, you can't change anybody, but the moment whenever you notice that somebody has some major issues going on, it's, first of all, I think you'd have to get more help on that first before everything blows up. But of course, it usually doesn't work that way. And then all of a sudden you're in this huge turmoil. And because it's like, then you start pointing fingers because of diagnosis, or accusing somebody of having, a disorder of maybe if they don't. So, I mean, I think that when it comes to even talking about any type of personality disorders, I think it's kind of a tough subject, mostly because of the fact that I think we're all so quick to self-diagnose somebody, and I think it's been such a huge issue, even on, social media. And I think sometimes things get taken out of proportion whenever somebody labels somebody else as something else, and then, and I think that's where a lot of feuding comes in place too. I've seen a lot of conflict where, it's like one party is sitting here during a mediation. They're like, well, this person's bipolar and they're doing this and that. And it's like, what evidence do you have? And first of all, I mean, and secondly, why are you attacking this person if they do have this disorder? Why are you attacking them for this? Why not work around it? The biggest thing is trying to work around. If somebody really does have an issue, I mean, you have to work around it, because first of all, I mean, I would say if they're born with something like that, with a disorder or something, then you can't hold it over their head, really. But I do see issues with people that have, I would say they have symptoms of a type of personal disorder and personality disorder. And then it's like, you just have to learn, okay, how can I talk with this person and have them understand where I'm coming from? And then at the same time, helping them understand the point of, having some type of resolution. So, I mean, it's kind of tough when it comes to that topic.
Also, grandparents that don't get to see their grandchildren, do you ever mediate with them?
Grandparents? Yes. Having grandparents and having one, preferably both parents present, is helpful, because both sides are getting, at that point, you got four sides, and they're getting to talk about their expressions, their feelings, their concerns, and all of that, but you're in a neutral environment, so that it's a safe environment, because everything's confidential. And if you want an agreement written, you can have an agreement written. Some people don't want an agreement written. That's fine. But it's very helpful to have grandparents involved with mediation, because then you're also getting to see, I say, that's the outside looking in of the situation. And sometimes in-laws can be an issue.
Yeah.
But hey, what's one mediation session just to hear what the other side has to say, right?
Right.
And then you could actually learn a lot from that.
If the relationship was good with the grandparents and they go into mediation with you, it would probably, I would think, be helpful to calm the situation down.
Yeah, it can be helpful to calm it down, as long as you don't have, again, you've got an in-law that comes in and they're the ones that's like so much drama, and they're caused a lot, or one spouse will say, hey, my mother-in-law caused this divorce because she's the one who caused me to act this way. And it turned into this big mess. And it's like, okay, here we go, pointing the finger again. But, or they talk about, okay, well, I don't want my parent involved because my parent was a narcissist. And so there we go again, labeling somebody else when you're not for sure, but you've got the characteristics of narcissism, and it's like, I don't want to have this person involved with my child's life, so it's like, okay, again, let's just get together, let's just everybody get a chance to talk and figure out what is the best way to still have them involved in the child's life.
And it's very important. These kids need both parents. Dr. Mark
Mhm.
Roseman wrote in his book, Preserving Family Ties, that with this family court destroying these families, it's going to affect 6 generations coming down the pike. And if
Yeah.
people knew that, this is also creating personality disorders in your kids.
Yeah. They don't know what to think. There's so much going on, and they're on flight, fight or flight mode, survival mode.
Mhm,
And, it's like, the kids are still trying to develop themselves. And when they're thrown into some type of traumatic experience, whether it's a small event or multiple reoccurring events,
mhm,
it it causes such a huge mental devastation. And then you worry about, I mean, you see all the social media and the news outlets about the mental health crisis. Well, it starts at home. It
mhm,
starts, at the very root of the source is at home. And
mhm,
so, it's like and then of course, once this child has learned a behavior that they have seen from one parent, or a grandparent or whatever, they start to either absorb that and use that, or they think, okay, I'm going to do the opposite. I don't ever want to be around somebody like that.
mhm.
Or they try to stay away from it but end up with somebody like that. So it causes so many mental issues in the long run.
Mhm. Well, you know, we've gotta somehow educate these young kids, not kids, but we'll say young teens and high school, because I know we've talked on the phone before, and they should be teaching, high functioning borderlines, love bombing, all sorts of things that they should be aware of when they first meet someone so they don't repeat the same mistake.
Right.
Mm,
Right. And I just think, they have um the schools are so different than when I was in school, when you were in school, and things are just changing every decade. And so I see, I mean, they've tried to bring in more counseling, school counseling, and support within the school system itself. But I think that, as long as we don't have any type of support at home that is available for everybody, no matter their income level, then we still have a problem.
mm,
I mean, not everybody can afford to go to counseling. Not everybody can afford to be involved with, different types of organizations. Some people are too ashamed to even reach out. And there's so much, the world is so biased. The world has always been biased, and it always will be. And they're so quick to just judge and stereotype. And so the moment that somebody wants to reach out for help, then they're labeled as the scarlet letter or something.
mhm,
And so it's like I think that if we were able to have more support for like the parental alienation support within not only the school, but within, churches, and, even more within small communities. I mean, in a city, you can always find some type of outreach program for any type of support, but even small towns, I think that if we somehow can just get more support systems and just really think it through, what kind, where, and how to make it work out so that it's readily available for everybody, and making people aware of what parental alienation is, what causes it, and what can we do to prevent it.
mhm. It's so important. Have you ever you've mediated a case and then say a couple years go by and one of the either the mother or the father reaches back out to you and said, "Now I have a really big problem." Um, with signs of and this person is telling you signs and symptoms of parental alienation.
Well, I've actually met several people over the years that have, it's like they've divorced, and it's like things seem to be okay. And then a couple of years later, like 4 5 years later, I run into them either in the store or on social media, which I don't have Facebook anymore as of last year, but before I did. And so it's like, I see stuff and I'm going, oh man, that really went down the wrong way. And I'm seeing that a lot, or somebody who just got married right out of high school, like I did my first time. But, and it's like, they have kids and then all of a sudden they're, posting or talking to somebody else, and the word gets around that they're going through these symptoms. And, and as an outsider, you're sitting here going, oh, it's like, I really completely understand what's happening and what they're going through, but sometimes I could have expected it looking back. Sometimes I feel like so shocked, like, wow, I would not have expected that would have happened to them. I wonder what really, really went down,
Well, in my case, we had an amicable divorce for 10 years until, as we talked on the phone, he remarried, and I didn't know or knew, I can't remember, that she worked in the courthouse. And things started falling apart after their marriage with my children. And what do you do if I were to come to you and say, okay, now this is happening and now I'm getting sucked into family court? What do I do now?
Right. Well, I mean, if the both of you were, when it comes to the mediation side, both sides have to be willing to participate, because it takes two to mediate. And if whether it's her or him, wanting to actually attend a mediation with you, that would be one story. And if they were, then it's, it's breaking down the root of the source, talking and exploring why has all this happened, and what can we do to make this better? And if they're not willing to be involved in any of the mediation process, then it's more of the coaching one-on-one, like, okay, we've got to talk about these long-term goals of how to cope and how to move on with your life by dealing with the situations as it comes, and knowing how to deal with it correctly without it ruining the rest of your life. Because, with when you've got a high toxic situation, whether it's a divorce, post-divorce, not divorced yet, it tears you up inside, and mentally and physically, emotionally. And so you can't live the rest of your life, like allowing that to eat away your happiness. So you have to find this, some sense of peace within yourself, so that you're able to cope with what is being thrown at you. And then, of course, thinking of other actual actions you can take along the way.
Has anyone ever brought in their attorneys during mediation?
Yes, it's common for attorneys to attend. I see it as helpful when parties have legal questions. The attorneys are there for the legal support. And they know, family lawyers know what will work in court and not. Sometimes family lawyers can be a problem, because you'll have some that come in with the bully attitude of, and the aggressive attorney that advertises, I'm an aggressive attorney and I'm going to win your case and stuff like that. But they'll show up and then they'll try to run the show. They'll try to speak for the client. And I think with family law, that works with personal injury. Sure, it works in different cases. But for family law, the point is the spouses are trying to figure out something that will work for the both of them and the child. And when you have an attorney over here saying, okay, after 2 hours, we're done, we're taking it to court. And it's like, all right, client, how do you feel about this? Do you really just want to spend more and more in court? Or would you like to just talk a little bit longer to resolve some of this? And then whatever you don't resolve, take that to court. Child support, sure. You want to argue over that? Let the court decide that. Sure. But visitations, different different arrangements within the homes. Any of that can be worked out in a parenting plan that both parents can work out over just a few hours, or even if you want to come back a few days later and finish it off after you've thought about it, that's great. But having an attorney that feels the need to take over, and it's not helpful. So I don't allow that. I talk with attorneys up front and say, I'm not going to allow that. Because the mediation is ran by the parties. The outcome is determined by the parties. It's controlled by the parties. That's the point of this. The point is so that the parents can have an arrangement that is going to be better than what the court would decide.
Oh, most definitely. Some of these attorneys, again, as you said, they can make it worse because they do want money flow, and they want a case going there and dragging it out for years. The problem that is so sickening is that they don't even care about your kids. And people need
Right.
to know that some of these aggressive attorneys, they don't care about your kids. They have no respect for you, even though they never met you. I had an attorney call me crazy across the table. It's like, when did you get your medical degree? But he didn't care about the kids. He could care less. And I think if parents really knew that, they would be running to mediation a lot more than hiring someone who just takes the retainer fee and goes to Disneyland 4 times a year.
Right. Unfortunately, working in the legal field and then knowing family lawyers, dealing with them myself, been through a lot of them.
Yeah.
And it's like they advertise, I'm the best of best, or they advertise that they are so experienced in this particular area of parental alienation. Or sometimes they'll say that they know the judge, or they know how this is going to work, and so not trying to like diss them,
Uh-huh.
but because of what I've seen myself and through others, it's obvious lawyers have to make money somehow.
Mhm.
And family law, that's why, I was like, I really don't want to work in family law as a lawyer, if I ever become a lawyer, because I'm not going to make any money there. You have to be in it for the passion of helping this client. And when it comes to divorce with children, you have to have that passion for doing what's the best for the child and what is fair for both parents. And that's, even though the courts are supposed to be that way too. But, how else are lawyers going to make money if they can't keep coming back for more, more funds and more reasons or more research? And then, when you get into a hearing, all of a sudden it's like, are you kidding me? This is what we've got on our hands right here. It's like, you've had all this time, you've had all this money, and it's a mess. I highly recommend giving mediation a try first. If it doesn't work out, you could always try it again later at a different point, when one of you, or at least not both, are at a different point. But at least some parts of custody modifications or divorce or prenup, at least try to decide something that you could get a better option before running to court.
Have you had anyone come to you for like a post-nup with things that say, I will never let third-party interference interfere in the co-parenting relationship, etc., children? Has anyone ever done that?
Actually, that is, yes, because that's kind of what one of my recommendations are. I have like little templates that I have for each situation, and it's just accumulation of everything. And that is something that I automatically like recommend with any mediation that is involving children,
Mhm.
to limit third party involvements to a certain extent. Of course, they're going to have to be involved,
Mhm.
at some point. They have to be involved in the child's life, but you have to limit, and there are many options to limit third party
Right.
involvement.
Yeah, I should have probably been more specific, like behaviors of the third party, because
Right.
like, as you said, we are gonna have to deal with these people, but we don't need these people destroying our children either.
Right. And and I have like my recommendations where we have the third party, like for example, the step parent cannot be present during exchanges, or they are not allowed to take away the child's phone, or they're not allowed to discipline. There are so many different options that you can add to this agreement, this parenting plan. Whether enforcing it, whether it is applied or not is one story, and enforcing it later is another story. So sometimes step parents are like, that doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? And then it's like end up in a feud again, and then you end
Mhm.
up trying to enforce an agreement in court, and then again you're looking at more litigation cost.
Mhm. And again, it's something that just won't work anyway, whether you're in court or not.
Right, something, and that's well, I think most of the courts do have um, some type of clause in their standard where the mother and the father both have these type of equal rights, blah blah blah. And then I think there is like typical standard language that will state third parties involvement, and I think there's like a small little paragraph or something, like, I know in Texas there is. But again, being able to go to a mediation where you can is very important, so that you can break down your specific case of what has happened and what you want to stop happening or prevent. Then you can break it down a little bit more.
Mhm. Now, if anyone has any, questions, can they contact you?
Yes, they can contact me through email. I respond better through email than phone. And my email is contact@slytermediation.com. That's SLYTER mediation.com.
Mhm.
Which you can go on the website, slytermediation.com. I have a couple of different links to my site. I have mediation for parents, the number 4, so mediationforparents.com. Let's see, I have a couple other ones. Like, I have several of them that I've it's easier for some to remember. The Remote Mediator
Mhm.
.com. So I have a lot of little business cards made with the Remote Mediator, because people seem to remember that versus Slyter Mediation.
Mhm.
But anybody is welcome to email me if they have questions. If you would like to schedule a free consultation for mediation, you could do that online. I have the calendar availability on the website. And then if you see something, or if you want to schedule something that you don't see the time available that you have, then you can just email me and say, hey, I just want to schedule a time to talk or whatever. And I'll be happy to do that.
And
And if somebody wants to do coaching as well, you can book that online for availability.
and you can do this on Zoom as well with them?
Yes. So my mediations are Zoom. So I've done everything remote. It seems to be more convenient for everybody. So you could be in any state. You don't have to be in Texas.
Mhm.
And so everything is via Zoom. And so for mediation or coaching, it makes sure you're in a private room, that there's nobody else there, no interference, arrange childcare. Make sure you don't have like the animals running in and out that'll distract you, especially when you're in mediation, because this is like very serious, trying to get to a certain point.
Mhm.
And then of course, everything is private, everything is confidential. And it's informal, meaning there are no recordings, and there's no court reporter. It's not filed with the court of, of what is being said or anything. So I have confidentiality, things that I have to report would be like abuse. If somebody comes to me and says that they've been a victim of abuse somehow, then that's something I have to report. It's because it's mandated, but I haven't come across that. For the most part, you just know that everything's going to be confidential and private, and this is a safe space to talk, even if it's via Zoom. There's no recording allowed either. So
that's excellent. Do you have anything you'd like to add or any advice for anyone?
Well, I think that it's important that, that if you've had any type of parental alienation, like symptoms symptoms, it just sounds funny to say that, but if you've been in a situation where you have been a victim of parental alienation, without sounding like a commercial right now for a lawyer,
right? Yeah.
But it's important to be aware of the situation. Important to know your surroundings, your environment, and being able to recognize, hey, this is what's really going on. And then it's important to step back and say, okay, I'm being told I'm the problem, so let me look at this and just breaking down your situation and figuring out how can you handle this better, and how can you have a better relationship with your child, or keep your existing relationship with your child without it devastating either side, but knowing that you can't control the other side, but then looking at what can you do right now at this moment to help you get through to the next level, and whether that be counseling to start off with, whether it be mediation or coaching, finding a support group, finding someone that you can trust to just say, hey, this is what I'm going through and I need to figure things out. I want to do what's best for my child, and I want to protect them. And as mothers, we all should want to do everything we could to protect our children, but at the same time, you got to protect yourself too. So I think it's important to kind of know what you need to do when you start noticing this is happening, and and actually taking action is the biggest step for anybody, and not being afraid to do something about it, to talk about it, and feel like for me, my story will be told sooner than later for sure, but mine's so complex. But at the same time, it's like we should not have to hide what is happening to us and our family because we're afraid of what people are going to say and think about our situation. We should be able to freely express what has happened, and once we get through a certain point, then we can say, hey, this is what we went through, and this is what has happened, and this is what we have done to make it better. That's the best time to really talk about it. When you're really going through the heat of the moment, it's more like lashing out at each other, and the world's like, oh, you've got a lot of drama. But I think that it's important, once we get through that stage, that it's important to, to make sure that this is not going to continue to happen with ourselves, more importantly, and our children, but also making it aware for other people. So I think awareness is huge. I think we should have more awareness and more, speaking engagements, whatever needs to happen to bring more awareness to, everybody, so that we don't have such a huge mental illness crisis.
Right. Well, I thank you for coming on my podcast, and I'd like to have you back on again.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Okay, so don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with Amanda Slyter in the future and other exciting guests. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.